It's big game time, so let's rework those classic appetizers with gluten-free, plant-based, and air fryer swaps. I am making a spinach and artichoke dip that is actually heavy on the vegetables and still tastes delicious. And we often hear things when it comes to those appetizers, and when it has a vegetable in it, it may not be the primary focus, but in this version, we are loading it up with spinach, artichoke, and hearts of palm to get a lot of flavor while still getting some ooey gooey plant-based cheese. So the way you start with the cheese, there's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. You can take a cup of organic raw cashews and let it soak overnight, or if you have a high-powered blender, you can soak it for an hour, and that's gonna soften up the cashews, and then when you put it in a blender, it is going to make a cream that is going to look, whoops, just like this. So you want that to be just like that consistency, kind of a cream cheese, but a little bit thinner. And then I also in this bowl put a plant-based sour cream. Really, it's all dependent on how creamy you want it versus how thick you want it. And I do like it a little bit more on the creamy side. So that's gonna be your base. So if you want to make it and not have to do the cashew part, just get a plant-based cream cheese and some plant-based sour cream. Next, we are going to use our veggies. So first I have a can of chopped artichoke. I got the version where it was already pre-chopped and recipe ready so that it was a little bit easier. And that whole can is going in there. Perfect. Grab the spoon out. That's not one of our ingredients. And then I drained a can of hearts of palm, which this is a very fun ingredient. We're using it just as a vegetable today, but for a little extra bonus, if you want, these make for really fun scallops that are vegan. If you want to go that route, you could sear them, and they have a really fun look to them. These also work really well as a crab substitute for vegans after you chop them up. So just some different ways if you're unfamiliar with that ingredient. It's a really fun one, especially for vegan and plant-based substitutes in cooking. The term plant-based, for me, it means eating more plants. It doesn't always just mean a substitution of making something that was dairy or meat-based into something that is just not. I like when it has a lot of plants in it, which this certainly does. All right, and then we are going to add half a bag of microwave spinach that is cooled off. And the microwave spinach using the frozen, it's just gonna be a lot more easy to blend into your dip. And it has a really, really nice bright color. So now you just wanna fold all of that together. And what you're doing is bringing all those vegetables together using your base of that cashew cream. We don't just want it to be a little bit of vegetables floating around in sour cream or cashew cream. This is about the veggies. And that's gonna add such nice flavor. All of those different artichokes and hearts of palm. And I am taking my time because I really do wanna just make sure everything's incorporated and that it's all spread out. Because when you have a dip, there's nothing worse than when you go in to take a dip and you don't get a bite of the thing that you actually want. So you do wanna make sure you go through it. All right. Then you're going to make it nice and smooth on top. Add a little bit of dairy-free mozzarella cheese. And then you are going to put it in the oven to warm it through. And then if you want to broil it for about 2 minutes to bubble the cheese, you get a nice brown crispy top. And you have a spinach and artichoke dip that is heavy on the veggies, made with plant-based cashew cream. Let's make some air fryer pickle spears, and we're gonna make them gluten-free and without eggs so that they are good for anybody at any of your big game parties. So we are gonna start with a breading station, which if you're going to do it the correct way is gonna include a seasoned flour, then your binder, which I say because we're not using eggs, but I will talk about if you are, and then our final crust, which in this case is our gluten-free breadcrumbs. So it's very important anytime you're doing a breading station to season that flour, because it's that first layer that's going to help everything else grab on. So I have gluten-free flour here. And then I'm just adding some garlic powder to this. You don't have to go crazy. You could do some paprika. You can do seasoned salt, but I'm gonna keep this more low sodium, especially because the pickles are salty on their own, so we don't need to go overboard with the salt. So we're just gonna mix that in. Now I have my cute little dishes, but you can totally just use a plate or a shallow bowl. You don't want anything too deep for the breading stations though, because that's gonna get in your way. Okay, so then our next way that instead of using egg, we're going to do a flaxseed egg. So I have 3 tablespoons of ground flaxseed that I'm gonna put into this center one. And then I have 3/4 of a cup of warm water. And I'm just going to whisk that together. And then after a couple of minutes, this is going to get a more viscous type of feeling that is very similar to an egg white. Now, if you are using eggs, if you're not trying to make these plant-based or egg-free, just you want to still whisk the egg up, and you can just use the egg white if you want to keep the fat out of there too. You just need this to, again, be a binder. It also can work if you use a buttermilk or a dairy-free milk. And you do want to just make sure you whisk the flaxseed in there. Okay, and then we'll just let that sit. And then lastly, we have our gluten-free panko breadcrumbs. I like the panko because they're thicker than a regular one. They're not as fine. So it's gonna give more of a crisp on the outside of anything that you want to put in the fryer, especially something like a pickle spear. It is more hearty. So you really wanna get something nice that's gonna complement what it is that you're air frying. And then to this, I have some Wholesome Pantry fresh dill. We have dill pickles. We got to add some fresh dill because again, we're seasoning all parts of the breading station and that's going to help with our flavor. And then I'm just going to tear it up. We just want to kind of infuse the dill in with the panko breadcrumbs. Whenever you are working with those fresh herbs, as you kind of massage the herbs, you're going to start to get the scent of whatever it is that you're working with. And that's what we're doing with these panko breadcrumbs. We just want to get them infused with that dill for that extra punch of flavor. Okay, and then we're going to begin our breading process. So I have my Grillo's pickles here. These are in the refrigerated section. I love these because they are super fresh, super crispy, and they just taste like something you would get at a farmer's market. And I think they work so well for this dish. So we're gonna take a pickle spear. Now, if you want to do this to keep your hands as least messy as possible, then you want to try to keep one hand for your dry and one hand for your wet ingredients. So because the pickle has the pickle juice on it, we're going to try to make my right hand the one that's gonna work with the liquid, and the left hand is gonna be the dry. Now this, for me, I'll be honest with you, this is like a pat your head, rub your stomach type of thing. And it's not a big deal if you end up mixing up the hands. It just means you have to wash them a little sooner. Okay, so we put it into here. And I like too using the flaxseed because it is this little extra bit of nutrition. The ground flax meal has some omega-3 in it. And so it's just a nice way to kind of get a little extra bang for your buck. And then into the panko breadcrumbs. And then you just want to really cover it. The thing with the gluten-free breadcrumbs when you're working with those, because they're made almost from a puffed rice situation, you want to make sure that you are helping them along with sticking to them because they are very crunchy. So it's okay if it doesn't hit every single part. You'll see when they come out, it still has a really nice look to it. Obviously, you want to get as much as you can because that's going to be the texture. So then you just repeat this process as many appetizer spears as you'd like. You can also do this with the coins if you want to. If you want to have a smaller bite instead of the pickle spear, that works really well too if you do it with the pickle coins. So again, you just want to get the flour on. And this really is an important step. I like to try different things because if there's a part of a recipe that I don't have to do, I don't want to do it. So I have done breading where I've left out that flour layer, and it does make a big difference because the flour and then whatever your binder is, it does make that kind of glue for the last thing that you're going to stick on. And I really do find that that last section of the breadcrumbs or whatever you're using as that last section, maybe if you're doing chicken cutlets, you could ground up some of your favorite chip or something like that, or a pretzel crust coating, but it really just helps it adhere. So then after you have preheat your air fryer for 5 minutes at 400 degrees, you're going to put these in. Anytime I do air fryer, I like to do 5 minutes and then check, and then another couple of minutes depending on how brown the outside has gotten. And what you end up with are these glorious pickle spears. And you could see you have that nice coating, and they're nice and crisp. Even if you have those spots where you don't have the breadcrumb, you still have that nice coating from the flour mixture that you did. And then to finish it off, I have a super simple dip here. And this is a plant-based ranch dressing. You can find versions in the produce section or in the grocery aisle. There are different varieties. So I am taking that plant-based ranch dressing, and then I'm just adding a little bit of the chipotle sauce from the chipotle and adobo canned peppers. And we're just putting that in and mixing it together. And that's gonna create a really nice dipping sauce for our gluten-free air-fried pickle spears. So there you go, a nice appetizer for your big games with dietary preferences in mind. Let's make some homemade mozzarella sticks, probably one of the most popular appetizers, but why not make them at home and make them a little bit better for you? I'm also gonna show you how to do them plant-based, but I will of course tell you how to do it if you just wanna make them regular too. So the easiest way to do it is find your favorite cheese stick or your favorite block cheese. That's what I'm doing because we have a truffle plant-based mozzarella, and I love a truffle flavor. This can be found in the deli section of your ShopRite. So this is actually slices, but what we're gonna do is after you cut them, you put it in the freezer for an hour, and that's just going to get it nice and cold and keep it together. And that's a good thing to do with a lot of things that you're air frying, just because it helps with the temperature and it helps so that the cheese doesn't leak out. I know the first time that I tried to make air fryer mozzarella sticks, and it wasn't even ones that I made homemade, I was taking them from a freezer section, and I had the cheese blobs coming out. So it really helps if you freeze it to kind of minimize the cheese blobs that tend to happen. So all I'm gonna do is cut my own sticks from the block. And we're just going to drill down. And you could do this with cheddar if you'd like. That's always the fun thing when you're making something at home, is if maybe mozzarella isn't your favorite, you can do a cheddar cheese stick, you could do a pepper jack, and you can have some fun with making your own. So that is how you get your sticks. And then like I said, you would just put that in the freezer for an hour to just help everything come together. So let's work on our breading station. So I have some flour here, just all-purpose flour. And I'm actually going to take a little bit out of there, and I'm going to use it as part of my binder as well, because again, I'm making this plant-based, so where you would normally do a whisked egg for that middle section if you weren't doing a plant-based dish, we're just going to essentially make a glue with some all-purpose flour and some water. So I have a cup of water here along with the cup of flour, and we're just gonna mix that together. You can also do a plain dairy-free milk if you want to as well, but I find that this creates more of that glue, which just helps to keep everything together. Okay, and then our last one, we have some panko. You could do this seasoned breadcrumbs. I'm gonna just season it myself with our Wholesome Pantry organic Italian seasoning. And I'm gonna be pretty heavy-handed with that because, again, it's a mozzarella stick, so that Italian seasoning goes nicely. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic powder to the breadcrumbs and also to my flour. Okay, and then we'll just finish whisking those two up. And again, if you're doing a pepper jack, if you wanna make it more maybe of a spicier Southwestern theme, you can take a taco seasoning and mix that into the breadcrumb. You can do chili powder. So again, if it's fun to get creative with something like this, if you're gonna make it your own, that's the benefit of doing it from scratch and yourself versus getting one that's already made. So then all you have to do is go through the breading process. You would take these out of the freezer. You're gonna put them in your seasoned flour and then into your binder. And we're trying to keep one hand for liquids and one dry. And we just want to make sure we're getting it on all sides. Whoops. And then just coat it with your crumbs. And this is a really fun thing to do with your kids, especially if you're using the cheese stick. You don't even have to get the knife out to cut anything. And you have your homemade mozzarella stick. And again, you could do it with any flavor that you want. Maybe you want to do a cheddar cheese stick. You could do that with pretzel crumbs. That would be really delicious. And you could also do this with a gluten-free breadcrumb and flour if you're trying to make it gluten-free and plant-based. You know, we're always trying to give options no matter what your dietary lifestyle. And so it's always really easy at ShopRite to purchase whatever substitutes that you need to make it either gluten-free or vegan. All right, and you just want to make sure you're coating it really well so that you have that nice crispy outside. And these are some nice looking mozzarella sticks. And when they come out of the air fryer after you've preheated it at 400 for 5 minutes, then put it in for 8 minutes, you have these beautiful air fried mozzarella sticks. And again, we didn't deep fry it, so you are getting the benefit of that same texture, but without the oil and the saturated fat. So that is a really nice balance to have one of your favorite appetizers. Like and follow for more recipes.